Hello. Cold Coke. Okay, that's one I just got. Other one, not cold Coke. I walked down to Walgreens pharmacy, and I made a video with me. I think I went crazy. If you want to see somebody that's crazy, just watch that video here, wherever it is. But I deserved. I mean, it was justifiable. If of craziness, if I did something, should have been some type of, justified or whatever. Although I'm not saying that violence is ever justified, but anyway, I explained it. Well, I'm not sure I explained it. I was just so angry. I'm still angry at them. I've been trying for months to get prescriptions from them, and I don't know. A few days ago I decided, okay, they don't answer their telephone. The pharmacy doesn't. If they do answer it, it's just a disaster. And so I got a call. I think this morning. I got a call this morning. We have your prescription, and we've had it a while, and pick it up tomorrow, or we'll pick it up no later than tomorrow, and then, or else, we're gonna send it back or whatever they do. And of course, I've been asking about that prescription repeatedly, over a period of months or whatever. And then a few days ago, I thought, it's got to be. I mean, they can't be that incompetent at that pharmacy. They can't be. So I thought, maybe that it's not really my doctor. Well, it's my doctor. He's the doctor at the place. There's another doctor there with him. I guess his partner. And then there are 2 or 3 doctor practitioners, whatever they call those, get all kinds of training. And the one I've had for years there, a female, and she's really good. And but so anyway, here's naproxen. Been trying for months to get it. Here's says no refills, by the way. I sort of think I already had the no refill things. Doctor authorization required. Has a doctor's name. I guess that maybe they can't put the doctor practitioner or whatever that is. I guess maybe they can't. Now, I'm supposed to take one of these for pain twice a day. Where are you? Where's the camera? There you are. There it is. There it is. I very rarely take one. And I go through a lot of pain. And then, I finally give it and take one. Okay, it's 12:09 a.m. in Texas. So this is my first. I actually haven't been taking my medicines really hardly at all. Now this and they don't have anything to give you intelligence, do they? Let's see what this is. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Let's see. Save time and stay protected by getting a COVID-19 RSV or I can't even pronounce it. pneumonia vaccine at the same time. I think that's what I did last year. And I don't see where, I guess I got tore up. What's wrong with you, Jim? Here's an approximate information. The prescription prices have gone, in fact, I think last year, I don't think that there was a charge. This is the eye drops for the upcoming eye surgery, and this is eye drops for the upcoming one refill. Okay. So, I don't know what this is for. Take one, I could look it up, but who cares, you know. Take one capsule by mouth every day. So I'm going to take, here I'm off to a good start. It's only noon and I'm taking 2 of my meds. I've got this container. Well, I bought this years ago, and oops, it's a good idea. I did a review on it from way back, a long time ago, before most of you were born. You know, I just don't think it's I've been using it for years. I just don't think it's working out for me. I don't know why. I'm thinking now, maybe I would be better just lining them up here in front of me. I have room underneath this monitor. Maybe I should just do this. Turn it upside down. I took that one. Turn it upside down. I did that one. And what's the date? 26? Okay, well, I have to fill these things up, but I think maybe that's what I should just do, just line them up there, because I'm sitting here 24/7. By the way, I got this microphone back. It's Wave 3, so it's the, what you call it, they make all this stuff, a whole bunch of stuff. I forget their name, but it's a Wave 3, you know, micro USB. And the stand I broke almost right away. And the stand is one of those, you know, one thing is screwed in here, it goes around, you know, it's screwed in over here. And then, you know, it can swing up and down and whatever, but I broke that thing almost immediately. And then I ordered at least 2, maybe, okay, that just shows how stupid I am, but I ordered 2 of these brackets. Well, first, you know, not at the same time. I ordered, you know, 2 of the brackets, well, one at a time. And, well, first I ordered the, you know, the one with the bracket and everything, you know. And got that, and then right away almost broke the thing. It shouldn't have broke, you know, that shouldn't have. And then I tried to find one, and of course on Amazon, I saw the stand like I'm using here, and a microphone stand. It's a little bit different than this, but, and they sent me, something that would not work with that. First I tried to, what do I have around here? I have all kinds of stuff. I really couldn't find anything. And so, but then on Amazon I found, the part, they even mentioned the parts, the company and everything for such and such. And it came, and of course it wouldn't fit, Then I thought, well, I'll take duct tape, or I'll take, ties, plastic ties. They have them laying around here all over the place. And that didn't work. So then I saw an ad on, I didn't return the thing, by the way. Then they had a thing on Amazon, and it showed the exact, and it was the part where the microphone and everything went. The part that I needed was highlighted, And it came, and it was the same. It was, I think, identical to the other ones that are all coming out of probably one factory in China someplace. And it wouldn't work. And so then I went to their site, not Amazon site. I thought, well, they'll have the part. And they didn't have the part. They said it was being, be ordered, or it was, coming in. And I think I went back again, not in, and then I went back again, and they had it, and it wasn't very much money. Less than $10, because that's what it should be, because it, so I ordered it, and I think that's months ago. I haven't gone back to check, but I've got this, and I would like to try it again, although this is working fine, but I would like to hook this up again. So I'll put this over here, and maybe I'll remember to go back to that site and see if they can find my order. If not, it's so cheap, I'll order another one. Let's see, these are my two, or the same one, but you have to need two to get your, it's the eye drops after you have your first surgery, and there'll be 2 surgeries. And I'm going to have trouble putting the drops in my eyes. I don't like anybody getting close to my eyes. I freak out. Everybody I've talked to, the surgery, well, except for one lady, I think hers was a little bit different. I've never heard of it. She had surgery done on, this eye, and then it was time to go back for the other eye, and have the other eye done, and they got her there, and I guess they put her up in the bed and all this kind of stuff, and I'm not sure what they did, if they did an X-ray. I don't know what it was, but they said, whoops, you've had a stroke, and it was, here. I've never heard of somebody having a stroke there. It was, so, and then she, they said, sorry, we can't, her place that she went was like the one I'm going to be going to. They have a bunch of doctors there, eye doctors, that kind of stuff. And so they said, we don't do that here. And so she went to other doctors, eye doctors, and they said, well, they should have done it there at that place. We're not doing it. And I can't figure what the deal is. The only thing I can figure is that that's something unusual, and maybe somehow be caused by what they did over here, and somehow they don't want to get involved in it if there's a lawsuit, or that's the only thing I can think of. I wanted to, I went to get the prescriptions, and I wanted to pick up, I had to pass the dollar store, except it's not $1 now, it's $1.25. They have the signs up, $1.25. But I wanted to go in, but this is not the best neighborhood in the world. And when you go in the dollar store, and I haven't heard of them having any trouble or anything like that, but you have to leave your stuff at the front. You know, they don't let you take it in. You know, they don't let you take a sack in and walk around in the place. And especially being, you know, it was quite a bit. But I also had Darlene's. I think she had 3 or 4 items, and I didn't feel comfortable. You know, if somebody would have. Well, of course, the trouble I'm having getting prescriptions and what. So I didn't want to have to leave them in the front because they don't have an area that, you know, when they can close a door on the thing or something. They're just there at the end of an aisle, you know, as you're checking out. So I just didn't want to do that. So I came on home, but I had to pass the dollar store, and I would like to have gone in and picked up some stuff. But I'm tired right now. The weather's not, it was okay yesterday, and it's okay, a little more, I think, but it's okay, so. Maybe what I'll do today is not go back to the dollar store, but go across the street, and there's a fantastic donut shop there, a big one. Man, they do this is West Fort Worth, and I've told you about this before. You know, there used to be a SAC base here, and they had a large military force here. You know, SAC base. They were actually flying nuclear bombs out of here and heading towards Russia. Well, I better say USSR, heading towards the USSR, and there were several. I think one of them was here, an accident someplace. I can't remember. There were several different things. One time, I think over Spain, something happened and the bomb fell out. And I don't think it didn't detonate. But then there was one off the east coast of the United States that went down. Well, the aircraft didn't go down, but another thing of a bomb dropping, a nuclear bomb. But anyway, this military base here, I used to hear their calls on the shortwave radio when I would listen to call signs that they would give out. I should be able to remember this one, but I can't. Also, when I was in Missouri, I'd listen to shortwave radio, and I could pick up the people who were in the silos. You know, they went in and the place was sealed, and it had to be 2 men. There wasn't very many in there. You know, I think there was just 2 men in there, or men and I don't know. And they had everything. They had to be together, and so of course I never heard any interesting from the rocket silos or anything. But then I think it was in Oklahoma, and I didn't pick that up on the radio. There was just 2. Well, there had been security outside, patrolling outside. But if I remember it correctly, if I run across a link, I'll put it below. Well, and if I can find a documentary or whatever it was, I'll put a link to that. If you happen to know or something, maybe you were, you know, living in the area or something, leave it to me and I'll update the site. Anyway, down there, you know, there had to be 2 guys together in the place with the, ever see the movie War Games, you know. Maybe they had 4 there, because I can't picture, they had to repair something, do something, and one of the guys was up there with a wrench, crescent wrench, I think. I've had a lot of jobs. and he dropped the wrench, and it hit and punctured something, and then there was a kind of problems you would expect. There was a small town nearby, and when a fire broke out at a place where there were nuclear weapons, and they did not notify the local sheriff, and I imagine, how would you describe a local sheriff? I mean, where you have a really small county, and if you just think about it, but anyway, they didn't, and I think the local sheriff even called, we have a report of a fire. What's going on? And I don't think they told him anything. Everything's okay. We just had, we were barbecuing. No, they didn't say that, and finally there was an explosion. I think it was just a fire, but I think one or two people were killed, I believe. I'll try real hard to find those links. And there's a documentary. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing did not go the way it should, that it should go, especially for the material and stuff they're working with. Oh. This room is really, it's just about fixed up the way I want it. But it's at the point right now that there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and it's stacked up. And then in order to, I take everything, and move stuff. And then there's stuff left there or whatever. I'm really tired already. I mean, it's 12. Well, I didn't get to bed till 3 or 4, something. So this is the 26th, January 26th of 2024. Then there's February, and I don't have, well, my local doctor wants to see me because it's been over 6 months, so he wants to see me. So I guess I'll get out and do that. And then in March, right about the 1st of March, that's the month that I have my 2 operations. I'll be so glad, I'm not crazy about, I can't really stand anybody getting close to my eyes, so I'll have 2 of those operations, and then I have to go back the next day after each of the operations to be checked. So that's going to be, let's see, so that's March, no. Yeah, that is, so my birthday will be in March too, March 26th. By that time, I think I will have the, January, February, yeah, I should have had the surgery done, and all the people except for that lady here that had the stroke pop up. I've never heard of a stroke, but then have April, and but anyway, all the people that have had the cataract surgery that I've run into, and there's quite a few. Darlene, years and years ago, she had, one eye done, and then her insurance would not pay to have the other eye done until, I think it was several years later that she was in an insurance program that would pay for the other eye to be done. So, but all the people have had fantastic, they have the first surgery done, and people say, wow, after 2 or 3 days, first day I guess they probably have a patch on or something, and the people say it was, amazing. They can see fantastic, like when they were young or whenever you can see fantastically, I'm not sure fantastically is a regular word, but who cares? And two, I know several people have the same, maybe that's standard, the same problem I have, and it's a common one because other people too. So my right, I found that out years ago when I went to have my eyes tested. I hadn't had them tested since I was a kid, and the doctor told me the same thing that people the other day. My right eye is, it's it's like out of business or something, really, actually, it's still working. But, so my right eye is really bad, screwed up. And so the other eye has been doing all the work. It's adjusted, it's like, this dumbass can't see hardly at all. So, and it's adjusted itself to take the load and make it, And so that's what so this is the right eye, is the bad eye. So when that's done, and then a couple weeks later or whatever, but when this one is done, if everything is the way it usually goes, I'll be seeing out of this eye fantastic, women a couple blocks away with nice tits or something, and I'll be seeing, although the other eye will be. And then, you can see really, really well. It makes a world of difference. I got a friend, amateur radio operator, shortwave listener, when at the same age. Well, he's younger than I am, but a little bit younger. But everything, and he had the same, same diagnosis. One eye was doing all the work for the other eye, but when he had the first one done, the bad eye. Maybe there's a reason. I don't even want to think about that. Maybe the reason is, okay, we'll do the bad eye, because if it doesn't work, well, he has a bad eye, and he's got a bad eye, But anyway, so they do apparently the first one. But anyway, this friend of mine, Vietnam veteran, Air Force officer, et cetera, et cetera. He when he had his cataract surgery done, they still have a white dog. They just love him and his wife just loved their dog. Well, they had a dog before this that finally passed away. And it's kind of funny. I mean, you could not ask for a nicer couple and, better people. And just all that kind of, the guy, not only, well, he wasn't in Vietnam, he was a weatherman. So he was, let's see, Vietnam, not Angola, it's in Africa. I can't remember, it was the one that the United States government was swearing up and down, we do not have any U.S. forces in Cambodia. Would that have been it? I can't remember now. That was talked about a lot, in the United States. Yeah, we did have troops there. He was one of them, and that was there. And what they were doing was giving weather reports to U.S. aircraft that were flying into Vietnam, North Vietnam. But anyway, so really nice guy. Now, what was I going to say? I'm going to tell a story or something or other. Can't remember now. I guess I should end this because I've been talking about 30 minutes, and I should. I know one thing I was going to say about him. Yeah, so him and his wife they had a dog before them. Their dog died. And they loved that dog that they had, and they got another dog that they love and do everything for. But a place turned them down. They wanted the same kind of dog that they had before. And so they had to go out of state to get one that they wanted and everything. And here's a guy, Vietnam veteran, worked for the federal government as a weatherman, blah 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 blah, all this kind of like Meals on Wheels. He was volunteering all the time, just about. And then eventually he went to, just call me when you can't, when you need a driver or something like that. Just a wonderful. So they want a dog, and the place they found the dog they wanted, and people there, okay, how many children do you have, our children are all grown, blah, 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 blah. So you don't have a dog, no, I don't have a dog, Well, sorry, we don't give our dogs out to, and that's just a family situation, whatever. So they ended up with another dog that they love, And he just fairly recently had his, not the dog, a friend of mine. He had his eye surgery done, the first one. And then he could see the dog, before they had the surgery, the dog was kind of a yellow, a color, whatever. That was its color. Well, it wasn't its color, that's what he saw. And then as soon as he had that operation done, boom, the dog was all white, and that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to having and it's two. I went a little bit too long, I'm having one hell of a time now, seeing. I mean, and I get so frustrated. I'm not. I know if you watch my videos, like when I'm going crazy about, Walgreens and their pharmacy or something, I know maybe I come across crazy. I'm crazy, but I just manage to hide it a little bit, except when something like that provokes me or whatever. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to try, because I really need, I'm taking, cardiac medication and other, prostate, and just a whole bunch of stuff. All my life, well, not all my life, I guess, because this is part of my life, but I really haven't been, sick, had any problems until I was about 60, maybe 65. And then they hit prostate and heart and just all this, all this stuff. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do click the thumbs up or something. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt. And stuff like that. Click on a link if you can, go in someplace. There's a link someplace where there is a site to I forget, but it's my daughter. It's on TikTok, that's right, and she talks about 2 or 3 things. Plants, maybe, plants for her yard and the whole, and she's smart. I'm not taking any credit for it. I'm not smart. I'm somebody who, hard worker, always worked, usually had 2 jobs. And when I worked, I gave 100%, all the time. I didn't sleep on duty. I just didn't do anything wrong. I just did the job. Now, does that mean that I got along with, like, the director of security or something? No. I did my job, and, if the director of security or hospital administrator, if they weren't doing what they needed to be doing, they had to deal with me, and I won in every situation, you know, because I was right and because I knew I'm not smart, you know. But, I mean, even a dumb guy can, you know, and uh, most all of those other guys, I'm trying to think of somebody who, you know, it's hard to come up with something, you know, somebody that was willing to stand up to authority, and I mean stand up. Um, Now, the one thing I don't think I've mentioned, or maybe I did mention, seemed like I might have mentioned it one time. I found out, well, when I had my second director of security for a hospital when I worked, I told you several times about the situation with the first, when I worked at St. Joe Hospital, when we had a security officer shot, and he shouldn't have, you know, shot in the line of duty, and when the hospital administrator came in to work and got out of his Lincoln Continental Mark IV, I went over and had a little talk with him and explained to him, you know, what he needed to do or else what would, you know, be happening. And then a few months later, exact situation, security officer shot in the same parking lot, the same time, actually the same time, 9:15 p.m. And I told the hospital administrator what he needed to do, and there was John Galegas' blood on the ground there, and he pulled in, the hospital administrator pulled, not John Galegas, but hospital administrator pulled over, and I had a little talk with him, and I didn't like his response. His response was, well, maybe we'll get you some horses, Jim. And that was it. Every doctor, that was the doctor's parking lot. Well, it was, the rest of it was, we didn't have, the nuns did not want to pay much money for, they didn't want to pay for security. But there was some rioting in the, I don't know, 9 years or in the past, I mean, rioting, cars outside. Here's a hospital, a nun, you know, Catholic hospital, 6th floor wing, that is, you know, the medical unit, X-ray, ICU, all that kind of stuff. Another wing, so they kind of joined, you know. And that was filled with retired nuns and all kinds of stuff like that. So, and so, when the rioting was down there, these old nuns and stuff like that could look out the window and they could see cars being set on fire, people being beaten, cars being turned over, all kinds of stuff. But, so anyway, when the shooting of the second security officer, John Galegas, took place, well, I've told this story before, so I won't, you know. But anyway, when the hospital, I've told this story before, too, many times. Because one thing, I did the right thing, and I didn't care who, you know, I didn't care who it was. I was right, they were wrong, and I made believers out of them. And it was a hospital administrator. He got out. I explained to him, you know, are you going to do, you know, such and such and such and such? And he laughed and said, maybe I'll get you some horses. And the doctor's parking lot was right there. And man, I was so proud of the staff. And a lot of those were, you know, maybe does this sound racist or anything? It's not actually. Every one of those doctors went to his office, to the hospital administrator's office. And then about an hour later, maybe an hour and 30 minutes later, the assistant administrator, I just can't understand somebody who would, you know, kiss somebody's ass, follow them around, you know, I mean, how could you live like that? But anyway, the assistant administrator of the hospital came out, because all these doctors, every one of them, you know, I knew all their names, of course. They knew my name, you know, that was the doctor's parking lot, and we were there to help them, you know, help them out, whatever, watch out for them. Anyway, he came out, the assistant administrator, and I'd never seen him, that he wasn't walking right behind the Now, the hospital administrator was black, and the assistant administrator was white, and I just felt like, hey, you know, so anyway, the hospital assistant administrator or the hospital, comes out, acts like he wouldn't get an actor's award, no nomination for a Academy Award or anything for acting or whatever. He came out and, like, oh, Jim, by the way, we're going to get the gate up over here. Both of the shootings, somebody came from the main entrance to drive into the parking lot was, we were there. But there was a parking lot that went into the back of a church there. And so, that was an open area. You could just come right through. That was one. The other was, what were the three items? Oh, bulletproof vest, and have a meeting with security about what we can do to improve and make things, better or whatever. And I think that was it. If you watch the older video, you'll know, because that was back closer to that time. But the assistant administrator came out. Oh, Jim, we're going to do this and this and this and everything. I said, okay. So I stuck around. It took him a little while to do it, and that neighborhood was the worst neighborhood in Kansas City, And I used to live in that neighborhood, and I used to live in it when it was a bad neighborhood, when I was like the only white person around in a certain, 2 or 3 block area or something. And by the way, that neighborhood, and working there, whatever, every morning the bus stops would be lined up with black, and black people taking the bus to go to work and everything else. Just, but anyway, I stuck around until I made sure that they followed through. I made sure they put a gate up there. I made sure that they got bulletproof vests, and I forget what else I did. And then I knew my name had been circled, There's I can't remember the name of the Mexican movie, or it wasn't a Mexican, it was a movie about, but whoever but there's a scene where the Presidente, he's meeting with these peasants, and they show up, and the El Presidente, or the guy, one of the, people there, the workers, the ones that are really poor, and he says, Mr. El Presidente, or whatever, the landowners, the rich ones, they're taking this and they're doing this and everything, and there's nothing left for us and whatever. And I can't remember the president's name, but in this movie, the president says, what is your name? And then looks at the sheet, and then he marks it. I love that, My name had been circled, and that was a point of, I couldn't have it any other way. I couldn't live the other way. So, but the black hospital administrator, then the hospital decided to move because, of course, the nun said, oh, we're not moving because anything is wrong with the neighborhood. We love the people in this neighborhood, but the hospital needs new fire escapes, and it would cost so much money, it would be better for us to move to a different location. And I thought to myself, nuns aren't supposed to lie like that. So then the second hospital went. That was I've told that story too because I like it. I knew I had to. I didn't want to give them the opportunity to. I knew they'd be watching me. It'd been a hard time finding something to because I didn't do anything wrong. I always did my job. I can't. I can't take credit for it. I can't take then say because it was just the way I was. And but so I went. There was a hospital 25 blocks, I think it was, away from the hospital there. That now it was. I would say the neighborhood there was definitely not as bad. Although we had a guy working there at the hospital as an orderly. And well, anyway, getting ahead of myself. But I've told this story too. But it's an interesting one. I don't think anybody else thinks it's interesting, but I do. At the first hospital, when the first security guard was shot at 9:15 p.m., the second security officer was shot at 9:15 p.m. When the first security officer was shot, about a week later or less, there was an article. At the first, they walked up to Dan Stagel and said, "Is this the hospital parking lot?" And yeah, this is, And then one guy sprayed him with mace, and then they wrestled with him, and then they took his gun. They had a gun, and then they took it as he was collapsing. They took the gun away, and then the one guy who had the gun was going to shoot him again, and his buddy said, "No, no, no. Once is enough, So Dan, he went through hell. He was in intensive care unit for a long time. You're not supposed to be in there for that long, but he had problems. And after he got out of the hospital, him and his wife, after he got out of the hospital, he came back to work. But right away, even the stupid, people there, they put him down in a parking lot that was open Monday through Friday. Employees parked there, only employees parked there. There was the guard shack that it went up quite a ways, and like on a pillar, up there, and you could see down. And but I could just tell. And there was another security officer I worked with that worked the day shift, Frank Cipolla. What a guy! What a character. But we both knew that Dan was not. He shouldn't be working after the trauma that had happened to him. And what I was worried about is that Frank would be up in the tower, up in the thing up there, and the steps coming up, and say some, especially say a black, person, and the odds they would be black, pulled into that part. Say it's a young guy, and his wife went into the hospital, to have a baby, and they call Dad, hey, your wife's here at the hospital and getting ready to deliver and everything. So, he'd come driving down there, pull into the parking lot real quick, maybe jump out of the car and go up the stairs real quick to ask the guard where, whatever. We were afraid that, Dan would shoot him. And so we said, Dan, you should, blah, 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 and finally Dan did. Then Dan and his wife, they came over. My wife, made, and he talked, and, they all talked and stuff. But, so I went to the second hospital, and that was interesting because, I went over there, and so I go in, and I go to the Human Resources, and ask if they had an opening. I think I must have seen a thing in the paper where they had an opening. I went over, and the personnel lady says, well, you have to have, let's see, well, you have to have a year's experience as a security officer. No, I think it was, let's see, well, something like that. But then it was like, and she said, well, you have to have 2 years experience as an institution, at an institutional, facility. I said, I've got that. And she said, oh, okay. So then they looked at everything, and then they called down the director of security, and he came down, and we got on the elevator, and a Dr. D. Maria, I think that was it, really nice guy. He got on the elevator, so it was just the three of us, and then Dr. D. Maria, Jim, what are you doing over here at Trinity? And I said, well, I'm trying to talk this director of security into giving me a job. And so the doctor, turned to Mr. Ross and said, this is a good man. You better, you better hire him. And so we went upstairs and went back, and everything was an improvement. Everything looked like an improvement. And went back, and so there was a whole bunch of little things that really, made that a better place. I mean, things you wouldn't think of, like at the first hospital. I think the nuns probably didn't want to pay enough to have, each security officer have a key. It was, you have a key and then you pass it to the next guy, which might be good for security in a way, but it's debatable. I could debate it either way. But so then when I was talking to director of security, Mr. Ross, and everything, he says, well, he says, he says, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So anyway, and then he said, we talked, and then he said, okay, well, I'll check on some things, and then I'll get back with you. And so I went home, then I told Darlene, I said, oh, I hope I get this job. They have, at St. Joe Hospital, there was one small office, real small office, a desk, and the director of security sat there. And there were a whole bunch of other things. And anyway, it doesn't matter, does it? Say research, Belton Hospital. How could I forget? Anyway. So anyway, Mr. Ross said that not what you know, it's who you know. And that was, so anyway, I went home and almost immediately got a phone call from him saying, you got the job. And then a few hours later, I got a call from the director of security at, oh God, my mind is going. Anyway, that guy called, and I said, well, I've already accepted a job at Trinity Lutheran Hospital. And he said, well, I was director of human resources, there. I just came over here to North Kansas City Hospital, And I said, well, I already told the guy I'd take the job. And it's closer to my home, than North Kansas City Hospital. And then North Kansas City Hospital, their security weren't armed, which was unusual. But later, before long, they were all armed. But I made up my mind I wasn't going to work someplace that, if I wasn't armed. And anyway, this guy from North Kansas City, said, well, I think you'd be happier here. But anyway, so got hired in at Trinity, and I've told that story many different times of various things, or whatever. But I stayed there 5.5 or 6 years, not being able to understand this. I mean, he was smart, except he was dumb. I mean, what I found out, I've mentioned that recently, of course, is Mr. Ross was really, really smart. And he knew how to do a lot of things really well and everything. But he was really racially prejudiced big time. And then two, he was just trying to convince people, and he was smart. He was just trying to convince people how important he was or how whatever. But we got along okay, and I put up with him. And then eventually, after about 5 years or something, I could not stand him, and he was so prejudiced. And I've never been prejudiced. Except I did allow myself, I've said this before, when I went down to work down in Florida, and Miami, when I went to Miami or whatever, and then I saw how things were, I thought, okay, I even blogged about it, I said, okay, I'm not racially prejudiced or anything like that, but I'm going to make an exception for myself. I want to be prejudiced. I can't, whatever. Now, I didn't discriminate against anybody, but God help us. To a Republican, I think a senator from another state, not from Florida, but from some other state. Maybe, I think California or something. I don't think they'd have a Republican from California. But anyway, he went down there, and for some reason, a meeting or something or other, and I forget now exactly what he said, but I said, that's my kind of guy. He's got the right idea. The interesting thing about Mr. Ross, and whatever, all the time that I was working with him, and I had at least 5 grievances, I think 6. But not only that, I had to, and he was smart. But they were later on, just a few years ago, after who was our president? What's his name? The crazy one. The prejudiced one. The one that has the 99 felony charges he's facing. Then there were all kinds of stories about, in the news on CNN and stuff like that, analyzing it, what's wrong, with whatever his name is. What's wrong with him? And then they started talking about it, and of course these people were saying, now I've never analyzed him, I haven't, but, and they went through the thing, and then I was like, oh shit, that's Mr. That's Mr. Ross, and that's whatever his name is. They're the same. They both have the same problems, but one, very smart, but makes stupid mistakes. And then the other one, must be retarded. Not that I'm against retarded people or anything like that, and I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong word. And now I mentioned, I think one time, and maybe not even then, when I left Trinity Lutheran Hospital, right after that, the assistant administrator of the hospital, who was over the director of security, and food service and housekeeping and all the non-medical things, anyway, that guy, who was a nice guy, I liked him. He was the hospital administrator who was over Mr. Ross. And I did 3 or 4 grievances against the director of security, and I won them all. Once we were afraid that Mr. Ross's office, our security was our offices on the 6th floor, and the director of security had an office on the 6th floor. And we were actually afraid that Mr. Ross was going to jump out of the window or something. When I won that grievance, I won them all. And I actually won more than that, because when I would have to go straighten him out, and he would have a plan or whatever, and his plan, like one plan was, well, Jim, I have you written up, right here. I'm gonna, and I said, oh, fine, give it to me. I want it now. Well, I forget exactly how I put it, but, no, I said, he said, well, Jim, take this, but you don't need to sign it or whatever. So, and I said, oh no, I'm gonna sign it, but I'm gonna sign it on the line that says, not accepted. And then we go to the next step again. And then he was like, oh, Jim, never mind. No, it is never mind. And I said, no, you said you had it, give it to me, I want it. No, I'll just keep it here in the drawer. And I said, no, I want it right here, So then it got eventually where I actually liked the guy in a way. I could understand him. I can't understand, Donald Trump, but they were very much the same, trying to build themselves up, in which, Mr. Ross, was, but he was the way he is too. But anyway, and I might have mentioned this once at the most, because, anyway, I quit Trinity Lutheran Hospital. I just couldn't stand him anymore. And it was all set up, by the way. Oh, Mr. Ross, anyway, when I told Mr. Ross there, I said, I can't stand, and I'd refused to wear my sergeant's insignia. I refused to do that. I refused to do a bunch of stuff, And I said, I can't, I just can't stand you anymore. And I said, I'm going to do something. What are you going to do? I said, I don't know what I'll do, but I'll get a job. I've worked my entire life. He had no idea of my background, really. None of it. That's one thing. The people I worked with, they didn't know that I'd worked for the post office. They didn't know I'd worked for years as a welder. They didn't know that my wife and I had a patrol service for about a year, that we had a tropical fish shop for 4 years. They didn't know any of that kind of stuff. They talked about guns and stuff like that, but they didn't have any idea of my background. Now, one of the things that, of course, my father was this is way too long. Yeah. Let me end it here. No, okay, I can't end it here. I think maybe that's what I've done before. So, I had gone like the assistant administrator of the hospital, where Mr. Ross was the director of security. When I did my grievances, when I went, even sometimes Mr. Ross would say, okay, you won. Like the first time that happened, the director of human resources was really a good man, really nice and good. Anyway, I did my grievance on this. I forget what it was. And so then it went to the next step, which was the director of security, and then it goes to human resources and administration or whatever. So so I go to the hospital director of human resources, and he says, well, Jim, he says, here's the here's the thing. Mr. Ross has given you everything that you want. He's conceded, everything. You've got it. You've won. And then he said, so you need to sign this. And so I looked and I knew what I was signing. And he said, oh, Jim, you signed the wrong place. You signed that that's I said, no, I'm going to the next step. But he gave you everything you want. I said, no, I'm going to the next step, because I knew how Mr. Ross, how he worked. And so, but anyway, then Mr. Ross, and hoping he asked me, well, Jim, what are you going to do? Because I told him I was going to quit. I said, I can't, at some point, I can't take it anymore. can't take you anymore. And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, but I've worked all my life, and I said, I'm going to go in someplace else. And he said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I always loved electronics and computers and all that kind of stuff. And it was unusual to have a computer then. I sort of unheard of. And he said, well, what about our biomed department here? And I said, I would love that. But I said, I'm not qualified at all. No way. And he said, well, go talk to the guy in charge of it or whatever. And I said, oh, okay. So I went there. Really nice guy. I'd see him. Every morning the guy would come and pick up keys from security to his department. And by the way, I was on a committee there at the hospital that was reviewing people's salary, because hospital was looking at, should they be getting more money, the people that work in food service, the people that work in. Now they didn't have us doing, nurses or, x-ray techs or anything like that. We were doing them, except they had to pull out. There was like 3 or 4 of us, so we didn't review any, the settings for a security officer or food service or whatever the others were, But so I went to the biomed department. Oh, so I was on the committee that, we went through the whole thing and they were already making good money, and I didn't have any idea it would be going there, But the thing was, like, shit. So that was a good job. But anyway, so I went to the guy, that ran it, really nice guy, and I explained to him, that Mr. Ross was driving me crazy, which is probably not a good idea. And then I talked, and I said, I said, I've always, been into computers, and, well, maybe I didn't say computers, but I didn't hardly have computers. I didn't hardly have, well, we did. But so I had talked to the guy in charge of biomed, and he said, Jim, well, I'll hire you, you can switch, over from security here. And I said, I don't think I'm qualified, to do that. I would love to do that. That'd be like a dream job for me. And I said, but I just don't have, all your people have degrees, in biomed. And he says, Jim, he says, we need somebody to handle a computer system for the biomed department. And then he explained, every time we fix it, they check things all the time, constantly. Everything has to be, the date on the thing and all that kind of stuff. And he said, you got the job if you want it. And I said, that sounds like a deal to me. That's the only time in my life when I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go into an area that I can't handle, that's going to be over my head. And I was worried about that. I thought they're going to have, what is the value of E over V or something like that? I don't know, But so it was all set, and they had 2 or 3 people going to quit. And every morning then I'd see, it was arranged, the director of security, Mr. Ross, recommended me, hey, the head of, the employment office, signed off on me. It went into my merit review that I got. I got the highest you could get. Well, every year that I was there, I got 5. You got it, or was it 7? I think it was 7. You could get, 1 to 7. Now, if you got 1, they wouldn't be there, But and 7 was the highest I think you could get. And also, let's see, what else was there? Anyway, the hospital, so it was all arranged in my merit review that Mr. Howard or whatever they put, will be transferring to the biomed department. And human resources signed off on it, and everything signed off on it. And but I was worried, am I really going to be able to do this? Because I thought surely they're going to say, well, could you take the vote, meter tech. I can't remember the name of it now. You know, somebody. I thought, you know, for the first time in my life, I was afraid of, you know, not being able to do the job. Anyway, the guy in charge of, you know, the biomed department said, anyway, he'd come pick the key up and he said, Jim, just hang on, just hang on. I said, I don't think I can hang on any longer. He said, 2 or 3 guys are looking, they're going to get it, you know, they're whatever. And I said, I hope. And then finally, I just couldn't take Mr. Ross, you know, anymore. I'm kidding about this, but it was like, you know, I was going to have to shoot him or, you know. And so I moved on. But there's so much more to that entire story. The 2 guys that shot the security officer in the parking lot at St. Joseph Hospital. One of the guys came out, one of the guys who worked in food service came out. Now, there were several people that would say, because when the security officer on the second shift was shot, I volunteered to go over to the second shift, you know, and fill his spot for a while. But one of a black food service employee came out and all of a sudden started, you know, bringing his lunch out and standing out there talking to me while I was eating his lunch. And then he said, oh, that security officer that got shot, how's he doing? You know, and I said, oh, he's having some problems, but he's still, you know, still in the hospital. And then the guy asked, does he remember anything? And I thought, oh shit. And I said, no, he doesn't. And he honestly he didn't. You know, I was being honest. He didn't remember anything. And so I mentioned to the director of security. I said, you know, maybe we should do some checking. And no, you know. So now in the meantime, what all happened? Right after Dan Stegler got shot, a few days after he got shot, remember they sprayed him with mace and then shot him. And in Kansas City, Kansas, there was an armed robbery with 2 guys. You know, they matched the description, and one of them sprayed the person with mace and whatever. And I went to the director of security, and I said, Mr. Ross, you know, or not Mr. Ross, Bud Fisher. Went to him and I said, you know, we need to notify the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. We need to do, you know, no, that's not our job. We're security officers. We're not police officers. Now, he was a police officer, you know, retired. And so a couple of times I said, you know, this ought to be checked on. I said, which, now if you know security and how security and what authority they have and all that kind of stuff, please don't. Kansas City, Missouri was a different situation because of a city boss, a boss of a city, what would you call him in the old days, that ran the city. You know, you go to him and he'd get you a job with the police department, he'd get you a job with the fire department, he'd get you a job at, you know, whatever. And then his company also, for many reasons, you know, Kansas City was so corrupt that finally the state of Missouri stepped in and said, okay, no, you're not running, you know, you're not having a city police department run by city, you know, personnel or whatever. It's going to be supervised by the state of Missouri. And I don't know if they did St. Louis too, you know, or what. So Kansas City turned out, a security officer actually had full police power. And all the things that go with that. I mean, even when somebody was arrested at the hospital or whatever, the police officers were told, you know, the Kansas City, Missouri police officers were told that you will you will not go to court on that. They didn't want the officer, Kansas City, Missouri police officers going to court. But of course, most of them did because they had the ticket book with, the dates of court times and stuff like that, and they were doing that. So most of them would do it, but they'll be constantly told, don't do that unless it's, a murder. I mean, something really important, really, and then there was a whole bunch of other things. It's a very unique situation. I don't know if they've changed it in the last 24 years or not. Probably they would have. But so we could have investigated it ourselves. Well, except the problem was, for that armed robbery that happened right after that was in Kansas City, Kansas. And so we wouldn't have had any jurisdiction, other than what a security guard would have over there. But it was different in Kansas City, Missouri. We could have, stepped in, but it had nothing to do with it. So after Dan Stagel was shot, after the incident in Kansas City, Kansas, then there was I'm not sure if it was an armed robbery or not, but a bowling alley that was real close to St. Joe Hospital. A security guard there was shot and killed. And then there was another shooting, and I'm not sure if somebody was killed, if the guard or whatever was, killed. I don't think so. I don't remember hearing about that. And then about that time, I went to Trinity Lutheran Hospital. I told you about that. So I'm there. It's about my first week or whatever. And between 1 and 3, a security guard had to be at this entrance to a parking lot for employees. So I was out there, and and actually I was kidding about this, because a lot had happened, And so anyway, I was there at the gate, and the gate was down, but, you could push a button and raise it up or whatever. And a car pulls in, and guess who is in the car coming to work? The the guy who was working in food service at Trinity Lutheran Hospital, at St. Joseph Hospital, who'd come out to the parking lot that time and asked me how Dan Stagel was doing, and did he remember anything. And then, so anyway, here we are. I'm seeing an old buddy, and he says, Jim, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I had to come over here and had to keep an eye on you, didn't I? And he said, yeah. And he went and parked his car, went inside, and he quit immediately, came out, and left. So wasn't very long after that in the same neighborhood of St. Joseph Hospital, a few blocks away or whatever, they had a off-duty Jackson County Sheriff's deputy who was working off-duty there, and armed robbery. I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2. I guess it'd be doing the same 2. They came in and they shot and killed him, and of course the police went to, in Jackson County Sheriff's Department, and everybody went to work, and those guys, were arrested and confessed or whatever. Okay, that's long enough. Oh, you poor people. Benedici Day. I'm sorry about taking on mea culpa, mea maxa culpa. Give a thumbs up if you like this, and if you do, there's something wrong with you. If you don't like this content, give a thumbs down. Thank you very much.